Ciao ragazzi, this is Talk Calcio TV on YouTube. Buonasera tutti. This Saturday it is a big clash at the San Siro in Milan. Internazionale taking on Juventus, the match dubbed the DerbyD'Italia, the Derby of Italy. While this may not be considered one of the biggest derbies in the world, like Celtic versus Rangers, Barcelona and Madrid, even Liverpool versus Manchester United, it is a rivalry that is intense and built on a history of controversy, match fixing, scandal, political issues, two owners that didn't get on. It even ended up in a punch-up in the Italian parliament. So how did Inter versus Juventus become such a fierce rivalry like it is today? The Derby d'Italia was the name given to matches contested by Internazionale and Juventus by Italian journalist Gianni Brera in the 1960s. Now, as you know, both Inter and Juventus are from the two biggest cities in the northwest of Italy, Turin and Milan. It is also, though, when it comes to the political side of things, two regions that are often ruled by opposition parties, a rivalry you could say that goes beyond the pitch as well. On the pitch, we have two of Italy's most successful clubs, though. Juventus have won the Scudetto 33 times, whilst Internazionale have won it 18 times, joint in second with their cross-city rivals AC Milan. When we talk about controversy in this fixture, you have to go way back to 1960 to 61 when it first reared its head. Now, the two teams were playing in a Serie A fixture, fans invaded the pitch. The game was suspended and given as a victory in the favour of the Nerazzurri Inter Milan. At the time, however, Juventus president Umberto Agnelli was also on the board of the Italian Football Federation. He overturned this result and demanded the game be replayed. Now, as you can imagine, this incensed Angelo Moratti, the owner or president of Inter Milan, father of Massimo Moratti, and the Nerazzurri Tifosi. In protest, Inter Milan decided to field their youth team players. They were, however, thrashed 9-1 by the Bianconeri, with Omar Sivori scoring 6 in that game. He would go on later that year to win the FIFA Ballon d'Or award. On the 26th of April 1998 of the Serie A season, with just 4 games remaining, Juventus would host Inter Milan at the Stadio delle Alpi in Turin. Now, there was just 1 point separating them in the Scudetto race. More than likely this was going to be a Scudetto decider. Now, when we look at the teams then, you look at Juventus, they had the likes of Del Piero, Zidane, Deschamps, Davids. Inter, of course, had Ronaldo, Zamorano, Zanetti, Djorkaeff. Alessandro Del Piero put Juventus, the reigning champions, 1-0 up in the first half with a brilliant solo goal, but all hell would break loose in the 69th minute. Inter's Brazilian striker Ronaldo got into the Juventus box before Bianconeri defender Mark Giuliano scythed him right down. To much of everyone's surprise, Piero Cuccarini, the referee at the time, waved play on. Within seconds, Juventus went straight down the other end of the pitch. Taribo, West Nigerian defender for Inter, fouled Alessandro Del Piero. A penalty was given in Juventus' favour. Now, at this stage, you can imagine this incensed all of Inter Milan's players. Gianluca Pagliuca, of course, the goalie for Inter at the time, right in the referee's face. You know, it took minutes for this situation to calm down. The resultant penalty, however, was actually missed by Alessandro Del Piero. Pagliuca would have dived to his right, but his trailing foot had managed to prevent the penalty. Zamorano, the Chilean striker for Inter Milan, would then score it later on for Inter, but the goal would be disallowed as to so say a foul was on Angelo Peruzzi, Juventus' goalkeeper. Juventus would hold on to win this game 1-0 and all but wrap up the Scudetto that season with just 3 matches remaining. Jubilant scenes for them at the end as they celebrated with their Tifosi. Inter, on the other hand, their players were incensed. They surrounded the officials. Nerazzurri coach Luigi Simone had to be escorted while he shouted and called the referee shameful. This is a disgrace. This is theft. You are thieves. Gianluca Pagliuca, the goalkeeper, also had to be restrained as he nearly came to blows with a Juventus fan from the crowd. Inter Milan players, of course, had to be escorted from the pitch. It was just one of the bad, ugliest scenes you've ever seen. The papers, of course, read, Inter cried disgrace. To this day, I'm sure this is probably one of the most hardest defeats for Nerazzurri fans to take in their whole entire history. But it wouldn't end at the Stadio delle Alpi. It would then continue to the Italian Parliament the next day. The next day in Italian Parliament during question time, Massimo Mauro, a former Juventus player now turned politician of the ruling party at the time, the Democrats, was insulted by Domenico Gramazia of the National Alliance with shouts of "thieves, grotesque thieves, this is corruption." This would invoke in a major brawl happening. Questions had to be suspended. Politicians, in fact, were later on penalised and fined and banned from entering the Houses of Parliament because of this. This match in 1998 is definitely one of the most controversial in the history of Italian football. Inter Milan would fail to challenge for the Scudetto again until the 2001-2002 season. Now, on the last day of that season, they only needed to beat Lazio away, but they would lose at the Stadio Olimpico 4-2. Juventus would win the Scudetto after they would beat Udinese 2-1 away at the Stadio Friuli, much to the annoyance of the Nerazzurri faithful. Juventus had yet again took the Scudetto from under their nose. Inter would fail then, however, the big money signings the next few years, whilst Juventus and AC Milan would win the Scudetto respectively. However, at the end of the 2006 season, Juventus having already been crowned champions, the outbreak of the Calcio, the match-fixing scandal, would rock Italian football and it would never recover. Now, 2006, as you know, was a great year for the Italian national team. We won our 4th ever World Cup, having defeated France in the final of Germany 2006 in Berlin on penalties. But once the celebrations and the dust had settled, Italian football was back in the courts. Now, the judge ruled the 4 teams guilty of match fixing were, of course, Juventus, who had finished top, AC Milan, who had finished second, along with Fiorentina, Lazio and Regina. His rulings would relegate Juventus to Serie B, strip them of their title. AC Milan, who had finished second, were docked points, and by default, Inter Milan had not won Serie A since 1989, were given their first Scudetto in 17 years. From 2006 to 2010, Inter Milan would retain Serie A between Roberto Mancini and Jose Mourinho. In the 2010 season, Inter Milan would win every competition they entered, the Serie A, Coppa Italia and the Champions League, defeating Bayern Munich in the final in Madrid 2-0. Juventus did go back up to Serie A at the first attempt in 2006-2007 season, but they would not win the Scudetto until 2011 when managed by Antonio Conte. Since he's left, Massimo Allegri has taken the reins and they have won the Scudetto every season since. This year they are going for 7 in a row, but they are currently just 1 point above Napoli. This weekend when they travel to the San Siro, I don't expect the Nerazzurri to give them any favours whatsoever. When we look at the head-to-head record, this fixture has been contested 237 times in all competitions. Juventus have won 107, Inter Milan have won 73, and there have been 57 draws. The record goal scorer on this fixture, well, there's actually 3, all on 12. Omar Savori, Giuseppe Meazza and Roberto Boninsegna. Of course, he played for both Juventus and Inter Milan. On to this Sunday's game. Well, the two teams, as we know, met back in December. At the time, Inter were top of the table. It ended in a 0-0 draw. Back then, the Nerazzurri were top of the table, but their season has kind of petered off. They're now in 5th position, fighting for Champions League qualification along with Roma and Lazio. The Scudetto race has become a 2-horse race. Juventus, having led by 4 points, are now down to just 1 point as they are above Napoli. They can't afford to slip up. They must win this. Fans, their tifosi, their ultras turned up at the training ground this week and demanded the team put more effort in, given the last 2 disappointing results with Crotone and defeat at home against Napoli. My prediction, now I'm neutral in all of my predictions, as you know. I just want the Serie A Scudetto race to go down to the final day. That's not happened in a long time. I honestly think, though, Inter are going to win this. They're currently in good form. As it's Juventus, they'll be fired up on their own ground, and their push for Champions League qualification. Juventus, if they slip up here, and of course Napoli still have to go to Fiorentina, mind, so it won't decide the Scudetto race, but it will definitely dent them psychologically. We're going for a Nerazzurri win on this one. I think Inter are going to win this just.